Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we have with us Mr. B K Chaturvedi, who was former Cabinet Secretary as also member of Planning Commission under the UPA. And the reason why we have Mr. Chaturvedi for this show is that he actually saw through some of the very important sectors of the economy, the infrastructure sector in particular, between 2007 and later in Planning Commission after 2009, and very closely worked with Prime Minister Manmohan Singh on some of these sectors. So these are the very sectors which are today subject of debate under NDA. So we will speak to him about the prospects, the problems that these sectors are facing, and thereby the impact on growth in general. Welcome to our show, Mr. B K Chaturvedi.
Thank you.
Now, you were particularly in charge or connected to, under UPA, to sectors such as power, ports, and as member of Planning Commission, even telecom. You brought out several studies, reports on telecom, spectrum auction, etc. Now, please tell us, how do you assess 1 year of the NDA government in terms of growth in these sectors? Because general perception is that private investments are not coming as yet. Growth is therefore not picking up, especially in infrastructure sectors. So how do you assess the economy in the first year?
See, the growth in infrastructure sector has been, if I would say, at a moderate level. In some sectors have done reasonably well. Power sector, for example, it has done
some uptick. Yeah.
Absolutely. They have been around 22,000 megawatt, have a growth of around 22%, 8% generation extra. So 4% now is the peak capacity gap. It has really done well as far as is concerned. Renewable energy, their Prime Minister has put up a big target. I'm sure that they will come out with a roadmap, but as of now, it is not there. But other sectors like road or like railways, they are having excellent plans, but so far the progress has been at a very moderate level.
Yeah, because the budget particularly focused on investments, public sector driven investment growth. Like railways would spend 1 lakh crore in this financial year. They said NTPC would pick up private projects which are not taking off. ONGC, oil, public sector. Now, do you think that a public sector driven thrust is enough to boost growth?
No, actually that's my worry, that public sector by itself unfortunately cannot boost growth if the growth is flagging.
So private sector has to move in.
Private sector has to move in. I mean, the experience here is you see the telecom, where the entire growth has been driven by the private sector investments. See the power sector, they used to have around 4,000, 5,000 per year capacities, and 5 year it used to be around 16,000 to 20,000. Now it is around 60,000, and now we are having 80,000 capacities in the 12th plan, and we should be able to achieve that. So the growth has gone up 4 to 5 times in that sector. So unless, similarly in the port sector, in the port sector, if you see,
the private sector has played a bigger role in incremental increase in capacity.
Incremental increase.
So what is wrong with the private sector? Why is the private sector not coming forward? Is it because of bad balance sheets? They are stretched for finances, what?
You see, private sector having problem in their balance sheet has been completely stretched, particularly as this government was coming at that point of time, because in the same number of players, they had really participated in so many things and so many areas, power, roads, the telecom, and they wanted to be a part of all that.
Everything,
and they don't have the capacity to go ahead.
To finish those projects.
And particularly when in the road sector, a number of projects went bad. There are problems. They are similarly in the power sector, there are problems of coal. And
Do you feel that the government has addressed this issue in a focused way? Because this issue was flagged by this government, even when it came to power, as one of the most critical areas to be addressed, which is all these companies that you're talking about, 20, 30 companies into everything, roads, power, overinvested, stretched balance sheets, also creating a risk in the bank balance sheets, NPAs. And everybody said that some solution will be would be thought of on how to deal with these assets. But do you think anything has happened?
Well, I must say that in the coal sector, the government has done very well.
Yeah, the coal auctions. They got the coal sector.
Coal sector is moving.
Moving, yeah.
They have now the growth of around 11% growth. In the last 2 years, growth was nil. So this 11% growth is fantastic.
So that should lead to power sector
that
also.
Should lead, has
coal-driven power sector.
Coal-driven power sector, and which is a very substantial.
But does that solve the problem of bad balance sheets, the private sector's capacity
because
they'll have to pay for coal, right?
Yeah, they have to
pay. Coal is not coming free, right?
Free, absolutely. So some of the companies which were there, say in the road sector, and which are overstretched, their problems unfortunately continue to be there. So those were projects which
those have still to be addressed.
Those have to be addressed actually. Those issues have to be addressed.
Yeah. And tell me, Mr. Chaturvedi, you've been cabinet secretary, and cabinet secretary is the chief bureaucrat, as it were, of the government. And he has a good bird's eye view of how the bureaucracy is working, how coordination with states, with chief secretaries happens, So, there's one problem which Mr. Jaitley and other economic managers of the government have been talking about, is the ability of bureaucrats to take decisions, because this government came in the backdrop of anti-corruption movement, strengthening of institutions such as CVC, CIC, etc., Lokpal. Decision-making has become more risky given the laws that we operate within. So, a couple of, about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, the cabinet brought some amendments to the Prevention of Corruption Act. How do you view a bureaucrat being insulated from decisions that he takes, genuine decisions that he takes, which may go wrong?
Well, I think it is extremely important that people who take genuine decisions, who take bona fide decisions, and who have not really benefited in any manner, they are protected. I think this government that way has done very well, I must say, by bringing in these amendments. Earlier, we had the UN Convention Against Corruption, and consistent with that, there was a bill being brought by UPA. So they have now further refined it. Now, 13(1)(d)(3), which they are talking of, this is one provision which says that you can be sent to jail even if there is no private gain.
Or if you cause loss to the exchequer inadvertently.
Even if they say that if it is not in public interest. Now, what is public interest is not defined. Therefore, your concept of public interest may be different. My concept is different. So, you can be sent. This is the only, India is the only country which has violated or which is laws against the UN Convention. The UN Convention says in its position that the corruption is when use of public office for private gain. But if there is no private gain and you have taken a decision inadvertently,
in public interest,
and you thought it was in public interest,
but there is a private gain,
and there's no gain to you. Even then, if you are sent to jail, then people feel that where is it that we have the freedom to
take
work and take decision and take risks. Because in government systems or in any system of governance, whether you are in a public company or a private company, you can only succeed if you take risks. And if you have to take risks, sometimes you will go wrong. And if you say that whenever you go wrong, we are going to punish you because you caused loss, and we'll call it willful loss, then I think you are really ensuring that you just don't take any decision. So that way...
Are you satisfied with the amendments that they've brought? I mean, have you studied them?
I read the reports when the amendments will come out in the parliament. We will have a look at that. Only read the press reports.
But they've not addressed 13(1)(d), I'm told.
I don't really know how they have addressed it, this thing. But
all they have said is that a bureaucrat, before prosecuting a bureaucrat, you'll have to take the approval of the Lokpal also. I think that's one of the things that they've...
So, in my opinion, this is not good enough. The point is that if the bureaucrats must be quite clear that as far as I'm concerned, whenever I take bona fide decisions, I'll be protected under law. So the law should say that all bona fide decisions will be protected. You don't have to depend on the interpretation of ABC authority. If you depend on that, then you really expose yourself to another authority who will interpret.
So, Mr. Chaturvedi, what you're saying is, Prime Minister Mr. Modi, who meets all these secretaries and tries to motivate them, he's saying that he will protect them is not enough. The law needs to change, right?
Absolutely. No, he is...
so that assurance is not enough.
His saying is 75% good, but it has to be backed 25% by the law. Unless the law says that, I'm afraid people will not move forward.
We'll take a small break here and come back to this. Please don't go away and keep watching RSTV. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are speaking to Mr. B K Chaturvedi, former Cabinet Secretary as well as Member Planning Commission. Mr. Chaturvedi, why I asked you about bureaucracy and governance is because this government so far, if you see the budget, their entire strategy for economic revival is based on public sector investment-driven growth. Whether you take railways, which Mr. Prabhu has committed that would spend 8.5 lakh crore over the next 5 years for modernization of railways. Mr. Modi is very big on kickstarting growth through modernization of railways. NTPC has been asked to buy up power projects by the private sector, which are not doing well or which are being abandoned by the private sector for want of funds or expertise. Similarly, ONGC, oil companies modernizing, spending more money on investment. So now, given the strategy of public sector driven investment, the bureaucracy which directly deals with public sector government investment has to be freed from these primitive laws, right? So do you see the connection between the two? Unless the bureaucrats are truly empowered, how do you kickstart government investments or government-led investments, isn't it?
Yeah, partly that is true. But also, I must say that government-led investments can take you so far and not further. Because
that's your broader point.
That's the major point that you can only take.
That point is taken. But in the initial stage, if you have the government has to issue tenders, it has to take decisions. Bureaucrats will have to sit. Even PSU chiefs will have to sit on big investment decisions. Railway tendering process. Do you see any big scale up in these activities? Because there has to be a big scale up, right?
To be quite honest, absolutely, you are very right that. The law which is on the anvil, which is that all bona fide decisions will be protected, and unless you find that there is a proof that you have benefited in any manner, your son has been benefited, you have got some shares in the company, or you have been offered a public holiday abroad, or any benefit of any sort whatsoever. Unless there is proof of that, of a quid pro quo, if you have taken a decision, that is essential. Now, if that comes, then I think people will be more encouraged to take risks.
If that law changes.
That law changes. And these are large, as you rightly mentioned, that since there is a stepping up in the scale of investments, this is the urgency of it becomes much more than what it was earlier.
And especially when you said that this government has done some good things in regard to bringing some governance ideas or cleaning up governance or sending signal to the political class and to the bureaucrats.
Absolutely. You see, I must say that the government has has taken some very fine steps in improving governance.
Can you name what three, four of them?
Let me enumerate, starting first of all with the constitution or when Mr. Modi appointed his cabinet. Every government has been having around 75, 8 to 80 cabinet ministers or state ministers. This government had around 45, 46. Even now, after expansion, there may be around 50. But the point is that they try to keep it very well knit. And the problem with many of the ministries, which were, say, energy ministry.
Although there is a complaint that the talent depth is not enough in this cabinet. Anyway, that's a separate issue.
That's a separate issue altogether.
Carry on.
That's this thing. But energy, similarly transport. These are ministries which were well spread over 4 or 5 departments. Now they have come under one minister. So that really improves the coordination a lot amongst these ministries. Second, disclosure of financial assets of public servants. It's very important. There's nothing, all countries, United States
have this provision.
Yes, there's provision. Office of Government Ethics is there, which is who sees that people declare their financial assets and who monitors it. I do not know whether this government has got any mechanism for monitoring. It's important that when people file financial assets, these are well monitored so that people realize that they can't get away with any corrupt practice in this. So that's a second very important decision in my opinion. Third, I think a very major governance reforms which they have done is, it's a small reform, but I think it cuts at the fundamental of governance, and that is improving, trusting people. So this self-attestation, which means trusting people, you can attest your own documents. This has done away with attestation by some subdivisional magistrate or gazetted officers and this, that and the other. I think that's a very major reform. But along with trusting, I hope that they also put in mechanism for checking that people don't misuse it. Because trusting means that those who misuse the trust are punished very severely. So I'm sure that they will put in this. So that's the third very major reform. Fourth,
how do you think there's another, I want to draw your attention to another, since you've been cabinet secretary. The senior secretaries say that Mr. Modi also reposed a lot of trust in them. So much that their word is final as far as the Prime Minister is concerned. In fact, Mr. Modi doesn't allow the ministers to interfere with their honest advice, the secretary's advice.
Well, I think
is that a change?
No, that's a very good thing because Prime Minister's works along, he trusts his secretary so much. I think it's a very fine thing. But the whole thing is a team. The Prime Minister along with the ministers and this thing. And if the secretaries have access to Prime Minister, they know that if anything wrong is being done, they can approach the Prime Minister. I think that's a very good thing. It really improves the morale of the secretary and...
I believe they have they speak to the PM on the phone, one-on-one. They get calls from the Prime Minister saying, Narendra Modi here. So.
Yeah, so that really goes enormously. That really improves their confidence in their sort of work. So that's a very good thing as far as governance.
But is there a flip side to that? Too much centralization and working with the states. You also believe that as cabinet secretary, you must have dealt with chief secretaries. So all the investments happen at the state level.
Flip side to that is that while this is good, the ministers have to be in the loop. They are also part of the system. You can't really say that ignore the... So they have to be part of the system. How they are brought in the part of the system, I think the Prime Ministers and they would, I'm sure, work it out. But they also can't, they have to be part of the system and be fully kept in the loop. It's the job of the Secretary to keep the ministers in the loop, and I'm sure the Prime Minister will work out a mechanism. Also the states, if they are part of the system, and they are also on board and their discussions are taking place with them, one has to be careful that it's a federal structure. And when you talk with the states, the chief ministers for them are the persons who are running the show.
Because I want to point out one thing here, exactly related to what you just said. Initially, there was, for Make in India, to make the Make in India idea more palatable to the states, or to get their buy-in. I'm told that the central bureaucrats tried to directly speak to the chief secretaries and try to get them on board. but then the chief secretaries gave feedback to the CAPSEC and to others saying that, yeah, it's better that the PM gets a buy-in from the chief ministers first. Only then can we can work as a team, which is what you are saying, right? You have to keep the ministers in the loop also.
Absolutely. You see, the problem is that in a federal structure, while the whole thing is extremely important, Make in India, it's important that ease of doing business is done. But a lot of this ease of doing business is at the states.
At the states, yeah.
And unless we put the states are fully involved in it, and therefore we have to work out a mechanism for that. Now, how? Now, just the...
How did it happen during your time when you were cabinet secretary?
No, what we had done was that we would involve the cabinet secretary, and they involve the chief secretaries in that system. Have them as part of this arrangement and say that what have you done in this. Then have a conference of chief secretaries, discuss with them that this is what has been done by this state, what are you doing about this thing. So this exchange of ideas amongst different chief secretaries, creating competitive spirit amongst them.
And with the chief ministers in loop.
And with the chief ministers, when they came, they said yes, very much. But when the chief secretaries came, they had the chief minister already, the approval of the chief minister that we are going there. This is
to discuss these things.
These issues.
Okay.
You can't directly from here have sort of talk to chief secretaries and say, because otherwise, sooner or later, the chief ministers are going to sort of
be resentful.
Be resentful of this thing. I think we have to work out a system in which we keep this in mind.
Yeah.
So coming back to the last two more issues I wanted to mention, which I feel are fundamental changes. See, we needed an institutional mechanism for transfers of money. And I think under this Jan Dhan Yojana, where they've opened accounts, I think it's a very major change. Now under the DBT, any transfers you want to do in this thing, it is possible now in their accounts. It will help reduce corruption. It will enable people to realize, and I've talked to many of the...
You know, Mr. Chaudhary, I want to ask you something here. You were part of the UPA. Recently, Mr. P. Chidambaram, former finance minister, wrote an article in the Indian Express where he said that during UPA period, they had created 24 crore new accounts for the very poor. And he said that it turned out to be, in self-criticism, Mr. Chidambaram said it turned out to be kind of target chasing. Most of those accounts were not really operational. So
you see,
now, this government has added 15 crore to those 24 crore.
What Mr. Chidambaram says is right, but the problem is this.
Because he says that even to maintain those accounts costs, 125 rupees a year.
So it is important that we use these institutions. And the use is by the DBT, by transfer of money in some other way to these accounts. So unless these accounts are used, and these are live accounts...
So that means it's only after they are used,
yes,
can their success be assessed?
Assessed, absolutely. Without it, this is just an instrument. If you are having this instrument and not let it be used, it is like many roads you have made and not used any. So after some time, through disuse and sheer disuse, they will disappear.
So basically, this measure of success for these 15 or 20, 25 crore accounts that the poor have, the very poor, say the bottom 60%, 50%, would be whether a lot of these welfare programs which are being delivered to the poor are actually directly transferred to these accounts.
Absolutely. The LPG money is being transferred, and that is, I've checked up with many people, it's gone to their accounts, and they feel very gung-ho about it.
But this has to happen across sectors.
Across the sectors. It can't really be that if you don't use an account, then as Mr. Chidambaram says very rightly, the accounts will close down. It costs money.
Because banks are crying.
Banks, yes, absolutely.
So
banks will
So essentially you're saying that some of these governance issues, some of these governance initiatives which are good, but they have to be fully taken to their fruition, right?
Absolutely.
And then things will start changing.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Mr. B K Chaturvedi, for talking to us. That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back with you next week. Thanks for watching.